From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
This is Edward Whiteman, Mr. Dollar. I understand that Mr. Soderbury's death brought you here.
Yes, thanks for calling back. I tried to locate the constable, Fred Remen, I believe his name is.
Yes.
I haven't found him, so I thought I'd talk with you. You were riding with Mr. Soderbury when he was killed, is that right?
Yes, I was. I'll do everything I can to help you. And as a matter of fact, I just left Constable Remen.
Oh? Where is he? I'd like to see him.
He thinks he's found the place from which the shots were fired. The roof of Goodwin's store. I left him there less than 5 minutes ago. If you'll meet me in front of your hotel, I'll show you.
Thanks, Mr. Whiteman. I'll be down right away.
Edmund O'Brien, in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Britannia Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Soderbury, Maine matter. Expense account item 1, $42.45, airfare, car rental, and incidentals between Hartford and Soderbury. I, for one, had never heard of the town, but I found it a few miles from Portland, Maine. First 2 church spires, and then the small group of companion buildings, all set against a peaceful New England background. The first thing I noticed when I drove onto its single business street was that some bunting, The first thing I noticed when I drove onto its single business street was that some bunting and a few American flags were still standing, reminders of the ceremony during which its leading citizen, Gordon Soderbury, had been murdered. His personal secretary and assistant, Edward Whiteman, gave me the details after I met him in front of my hotel.
The ceremony? Oh, yes, you wouldn't have noticed entering town from the east. You didn't know about the factory?
No, I hadn't heard. New one?
No.
Woke me, so he went the other way. I know that road, and where he'd pass through. Well, you don't leave me no doubt, Mrs. Sutherland. I'll have to put the state police after the truck.
Your business, what you have to do, not mine.
Don't you see you're making it worse by trying to hide the truth?
Hide the truth? I'm keeping a trust, young man. And if you don't know the worth of a trust, you don't know the worth of anything.
went back with Constable Remond to his house where he lived alone and which doubled as an office. He phoned the description and license number of Sutherland's truck to his county superiors. And with the typical disinterest higher echelon seemed to maintain for lower echelon problems, they told him they wouldn't be able to take delivery of Soderbury's body until the following day. That left us with no better than a vague promise to when we'd get such vital points as the caliber of the murder weapon, the entry angle of the fatal bullet, and the distance from which it was fired. Remond left me and went to talk with some of the townspeople, and that evening, soon after dusk, I went to the Soderbury home, hoping that his sister, Beth, would be in condition to receive me.
Yes?
Is Miss Soderbury in?
Yes, she's in.
I wonder if she feels well enough to see me.
Does she know who you are?
Not yet. I've been hired by her brother's insurance company to look into his death. Would you tell her that, please?
Oh, yes, of course. Won't you come in?
Thank you.
My name's Taft. I'm a friend of the family's.
Taft, my name is Dolan.
How do you do? Beth is in the sitting room. I'll leave it to your judgment. That is, I hope that